Today we're going to talk about how to install the CB1 module for a computer on the BigTreeTech Manta E3EZ. So the scope of this is basically to show you how to install an operating system on the CB1, which is this module over here. These have all been provided to me as samples by BigTreeTech. These are additional modules that you can use for compute modules. So there's CM4s, and basically this is CB1 meaning computer board. This is CM4, which is compute module 4. And they connect two pins down in here in order to connect. Now they're three unique boards. This one is designed for this. These can also be used with it, but these use either eMMC or without, in which case you'll need to use an actual TF drive or SD card. In this case, you'll also need to use it for the CB1 module. So to hook this up, what I'm going to do is show you the connectors underneath right here, and you're going to align these holes over here like so. Then you're going to apply some thumb pressure to lock it in place. Now this is used as a cooling set of fins. I also suggest using a fan, and this locks on top with bolts. But for now I'm going to show you without this so that we can actually just work with it, as you can see. So I'm going to take the antenna that was provided with this and attach it. And as you can see, it's got a little cup on the bottom. So you're going to have to find the antenna, which is right over in here. And another little pro tip, the antenna for this particular board is going to point towards the power supply. And as you can see, I already have the power supply hooked up without power, and it's on the connections right here and here. I'm using ferrule connectors for safety to attach these into these ports. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to hook up the display, which is right here, and this will allow us to see it booting when it's set up. But before we can actually do this, we need to actually image the actual operating system onto the board. So I'm going to pick this up for a second. I'm going to place this SD card, which is 8 gigabits, into here, and I'm going to place this into the computer. Now it's going to take a moment to actually set this up, so I'm going to show you and possibly pause the video during that time. So we're not going to plug this in at the moment, but we will look at the computer. So over on the computer, if we go over to the desktop, you can see that I'm actually on the BigTreeTech website. Now the CMB module, if you go to repositories and you click right here, you can type CB1. What you're actually looking for is the CB1 OS system image for the CB1. Now I've already pulled down the manual, which I'll show you how to find as well. If you type Manta and you see the E3EZ, you click on that, you can click code and then download. Now I've already done this and extracted it, so you can see that I also have the image. So I'm going to go over to the actual manual for it, and I'm going to type Control F and type CB1, and there's going to show us several instances of this. So I'm going to hit enter, then I'm going to hit next. You can see that they're talking about that you can use it with this, but there's several different entries in here. So to find the image, you could also copy this like so, and then go over to your browser, open up an instance, and then paste in the reference, and that'll bring you to the actual image. The same can be accomplished through here by going over to BigTreeTech, repositories, typing CB1, and clicking right here. That will bring you to the actual image as well when you click on latest image. Then you can download it down below here. So I'm pulling this image right here that I've already pulled right here, and it's already extracted. So I'm going to go to Raspberry Pi Imager. I'm going to choose the operating system, use custom, select it in my downloads folder, click open, choose the storage, click that, and then write. Now it's going to warn me. I'm going to say yes. And this may take several moments to actually load, so it'll start to write. As soon as the writing is completing, or has completed, pardon me, it'll then verify. So I'm going to pause the video until verification is almost complete. Okay, the verification's almost complete. So the next step is going to be, after it's completed, you're going to have to remove the USB drive with the SD card in it and then place it back into the computer. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So let me click continue. Bringing this over so you can see what I'm about to do. So I'm going to pop out the drive, and then I'm going to place it back in the computer. So you'll hear a beep. Then I'm going to go back over to the desktop. I'm going to go to where the drive is located. It should say boot, possibly. It may have a different name. And we're going to find the system config file. Right click on that, and I open it usually with Notepad++. So inside here, you can see that there's a Wi-Fi SSID. That is the name of your Wi-Fi network. This is the password to your Wi-Fi network. In older versions of this image, you had to use this and this being the same, and this being the Wi-Fi password being the same. So we're going to try it just with this. Now obviously I'm going to have to change this without letting you see what my Wi-Fi is. So I'm going to pause the video for a moment and save the file. Then we'll try and see if it connects. Okay, I've saved it out. So what we're going to do next is go back over to the actual desk, pop out the drive, and we're going to insert the drive right down here. So it might be kind of hard for me to get in with this in the way. So I'm going to pull this out for a second. Place this in here. Hopefully not taking forever to do this. Place this back in so we can actually see what's occurring. And I'll turn this on in just a second with power. But before I do that, I'll bring up the actual display so you can see it, hopefully on the actual computer desktop. So I'm going to plug it in, then I'll go back over to the desktop. Okay, so now it's beginning to power. As you can see, there's nothing just yet, but if we're successful, we'll see that little green symbol for the display. Now, normally this would be an HDMI 5 display, but I'm piping it through my computer so that you can see what's occurring with the actual load. Now, this may take a few moments to actually load, but once it's complete, what we'll have to do is then find it with our router. So this may take a few seconds. So what I'm going to do is bring up my router. Now keep in mind, when I bring up my router, I'm going to blur out part of the screen so you cannot see what I'm doing. So here's my router. I'm going to have to log into connected devices. Once I'm in connected devices, we're going to check for the IP address. So it'll show up in here not as FluidPi, but as the actual version that they're using. So FluidPi is something else that I have on my network. Obviously, this is my computer. So we're going to have a device that'll show up. So let's refresh and see if it shows up. It may take a few moments or even a reboot to actually get this to work. So let's try one more. And there it is. So it should display in a second with this. So let's see if it actually shows up. Okay, there it is. It says BTT-CB1. So the IP address in this case is 192.168.1.6. So I'm going to copy that, go over to here, and paste this. Then I'm going to hit enter, and this should bring up our environment. So it's going to have an issue right away. So what that issue is has to do with the actual missing parts to this. So let me show you what's occurring. There's actually missing several things here. First, the actual configuration that we're using, being printer.config, is not here. So it's pointing to a generic BTT or BigTreeTech file that doesn't exist. So what we'll do is we'll go over to the actual Marlin website. We'll click on BigTreeTech, then we'll go to repository. We'll search on Manta for the E3EZ. We'll go to hardware. Whoop, pardon me, not hardware. To firmware. Now their firmware is not included in here. I'll give you a link to my Patreon site so you can actually find it, and I'll make it available to the public. But I'm going to grab the Ender 3 configuration that they have here. So I'm basically going to highlight all this by copying right here. And then I'm going to go back over, and we're going to find where the generic BTT is. Hopefully there is one. If not, we'll have to create one. So I don't see a generic printer config. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a file. And we'll call this, let's take a look over here and see what we got for names. So we'll call it this. So I'm going to copy this for the moment, go over here, paste this in here, and then create. So inside of here, we now have a created file, but we need to modify this to actually include it. So we're going to paste it over here, and then we'll save that. Now it's still going to have issues because we need to populate this file. So I'm going to click back over here, go back over to the generic config, click copy, go here, and paste it like so. Then we'll save and restart, and there'll be another issue that occurs when we get to the console, or excuse me, to the dashboard. So it's not ready, so we'll try a firmware restart. Now the firmware is already installed for this, so I know that's not going to be an issue. So we're going to have to do one other thing that it's probably not showing us. So let's click here and do a restart and see if this takes care of the issue. Otherwise, we're going to have to power down and restart this, which is looking like we're going to need to do, which you can do over in here. So you have restart, firmware restart, and then a couple other things like reboot and shutdown. So currently, it says the printer is not ready. There's an error that's occurring that we can't see. So one of the places you can check for errors is usually in the actual console, but we're not seeing what the actual error is. I know what it actually is. Essentially, what's occurring is printer.config is pointing to here. So this should work, but as you can see, maybe not right away. Let's see what we got here. So we go over here, it doesn't say it's ready. So I'm going to try a couple things on the actual desktop. So I'm going to go over to the actual desktop here, And normally what we'll do is power the board down, but we're going to need 2 thermistors. So we're going to have to connect those. So normally what we can do is we have to find out what they are. So let me power down the board for a second. Then we're going to go over to the actual computer to find out what's going on the desktop. And we're going to have to go back over to the Manta EZ folder. And we're going to have to find those 2 pieces of hardware that we need to connect. So we'll go to Pins. And inside Pins, down here, this is not really a good image. Let me try seeing if I've got another image up already. There we go. Inside here, you can see that there's actually going to be the thermistors located in here. So they're right here. So TH1 is going to be your thermal hot end 1, which is associated with your hot end 1. Then we have thermal hot end 0, which is here. And then we have thermal bed. So normally you need the bed and the hot end for the first one in order to hook this up because they're defined in the file. That's the first issue that we're going to have to deal with hardware-wise. There's going to be a software issue next that I'm going to show you how to deal with. So I'm going to plug this in to the actual board. So let me show you how this goes. So I'll plug this in right here. It's a notched connector. And I'm going to plug in the other one as well. And then I'll show you the other issue that's occurring. That's probably the first issue that we should have shot for a troubleshoot. So those are connected. So let's go back over to the computer, and this is where it gets fun. So back on the computer, I'm going to have to plug it back in for the board. So it's powering up. So I'll pause this for a second, but we're going to have to go over to TerraTerm and actually find it. So currently I don't have TerraTerm up and running, but we're going to click on New Connection. We're going to go to the connection that was for the board. We're going to use SSH, and it's port 22. And when it comes up, this will be a TCP IP connection. So let's give this a second, and then we'll give this a try for the actual OK. But we can actually check on it real quick to see what's going on with the display. And it looks like we're close. You can't actually see it yet pop is something, but we're watching for it right here. Okay, now you should be able to see it right here. It took a second to actually boot. So we know we're up and running. We know what the IP address is, so we're going to click OK. We're going to continue, and the password is going to be, if we look at the manual, let me bring this up real quick. So if we go next in the manual, it's going to take a couple. Here's the actual password. So login and password. So let's go back over to the actual TerraTerm session, and we're going to type in BIQU, then BIQU, and we're going to say OK. So now we're connected. Now normally I would instruct you to change the password. I think it's SUCHPSW. Hang on, let me see if I can figure this out. It might be SU password. PSW. Well, I can't remember the command off the top of my head, so let's try. Well, I'll put the command in the actual whatchamacallit, in the description on how to do that for now. But what we need to find is actually located over here for Klipper. We're going to have to go over to configuration. Hang on, let me get the actual configuration. for installation. I already have the actual setup done, which is these steps above, but we're looking for the actual COM port, or in this case, it's a serial port. So we have to go here, paste that command, and press enter. That is where our board is located, so we can highlight that and right click and it'll copy it. Now obviously it pastes it automatically, but it's in the buffer now. So now we can go back over to the browser, go to Mainsail, try again for the connection. Now we have to go to the machine, printer config, find where our config is, which is over here. So we'll exit out of here, find our configuration. Now we need to find the MCU in here. So the MCU is located someplace in here. There it is. So I'm gonna put this underneath just so you can see what the difference is. So you're gonna type serial, colon, space, and then Control V to paste. So this is the default one. So to get this to go away, you can hit the Control / to comment it out, and then save and restart. Now we can go back over to the dashboard and see if it comes up and is functional, which it is. So if you like my tutorial, please press the like button and subscribe. And also, I'll put a thank you in there for my patrons as well as PayPal.